Welcome, everyone. I saw lots of folks in the chat. Shout out to Ani from Louisiana. I grew up in New Orleans, so glad to see somebody from the area. And so I want to just provide a little context here on USDR and what we're going to talk about today. So for those who aren't familiar with us, USDR is an organization that started in March of 2020. We sprang up just to help with COVID in whatever way we could. And we were totally nonpartisan. We are now a full nonprofit as well. We realized that there was a lot of work to do and we weren't going to be done in a few weeks like we originally thought. What we do today is very similar to what we started. We pick up the phone when governments call and ask for help, and we ask, how can we help? And a lot of times the way we do that is by understanding their problems and matching volunteers to the needs that they have. However, throughout that work, working with over 200 different governments on 300 projects around the country, we've discovered that there are a lot of reusable, common problems, and they're reusable or scalable solutions to some of them. And so that's the genesis of this talk in this series. We want to start to pull back the curtain a little bit and share a little bit more about what we're seeing, both the shared challenges that governments are facing and some of the ways that we're trying to use technology to address them. We have a really great mix in the audience, folks from tech, folks from government, folks in sort of both GovTech folks. So we're really excited here. We spend most of our time thinking about how do we help the public servants who are doing the work to help their constituents. But today we're actually going to put the spotlight a little bit more on the technology on the back end to share a little bit more about what we've been working on. So just to cue things up, we're going to talk about our poll worker management tool. This is a tool that we started back in 2020 in one county. Priya is going to tell us a little bit more about that shortly. But it's now scaled up to 10 counties across 7 states. It's been used in dozens of elections. And our goal is actually to scale it from order of tens to hundreds of counties over the next 12 to 18 months. And so one of the things we're going to get into is some of the challenges and opportunities we're facing from an engineering perspective on how to make that happen. So really excited to dive in more into all of this with everyone here. I did see one person mentioning interest in election tabulation. One thing I want to mention, we do not have any role in vote counting or those sorts of activities. We focus our election work pretty exclusively on the nuts and bolts of managing election offices and supporting election officials to do the actual running of the election. Things like managing poll workers, which we're going to talk about today, and other aspects of being more effective in running a more streamlined office using technology. So before we get started with our questions, I just want to introduce our panelists. We have 3 wonderful folks who are joining us, as well as myself. So just to start with, my name's Alex. I'm the CTO here at US Digital Response, previously Director of Engineering at Dropbox, and have been with us basically since that beginning in March of 2020. Then we have three folks who are all part of our elections program. So first, love to introduce Priya Garg, who is our elections program co-lead and formerly PM at Amazon. Second, welcome Melissa House. This is actually Melissa's first day as a full-time USDR employee. She's been a long-time volunteer, so I just want to give her a huge welcome. And we have a stretch clap tradition here to celebrate things and people. So please help us welcome Melissa. She is now officially our elections partner engineer and is formerly the director of backend technology at Apple. And finally, last but not least, we have Mike Foreman, who is actually the poll worker project lead, also a longtime volunteer, has worked with numerous counties, and formerly a number of leadership roles in engineering, including VP of engineering at Blackboard. So welcome, everyone. Let's get started. So to kick things off, Melissa, I know you've been working on this for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project itself and what you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. And I think the easiest way to do that is probably just to show as I talk about it. So I'm going to give a quick little demo here. Let me get my screen up here. All right, so this is our project. Oops, let me get to the first tab here. So this is the poll workers project. And this tool that we've built allows election offices to manage their poll workers. We're using a tool called Airtable for this, and it allows you to collect applications with a web form. Election offices can communicate with election workers easily with email and text. They assign workers to specific roles and precincts. So on election day, counties can have 100 or more different precincts that each need 2 to 5 or 6 different poll workers in different roles. They try to match different political parties, so they're balanced. So this assignment process can get fairly complex. And so that is really the core of our tool. We also allow them to organize training, collect status on election day for their polling locations. We've given them a simple help desk with a form so that poll workers can submit issues. And then we can also generate payroll reporting, because in a lot of counties, payroll or poll workers are paid a small amount of $150 to $200 for working that day as a poll worker. So you can see here, this is our Airtable base. So Airtable calls their database a base. Airtable kind of sits at the intersection between Microsoft Excel as a spreadsheet and like a full blown database like Postgres or Oracle or something like that. It's great because it provides a lot of rich features that we can develop a tool like this in, while still having a simplicity that the election offices, who tend to be fairly non-technical. I mean, they have IT teams, but we are generally working directly with the election teams so that they can take this on and manage it themselves. So here you can see we've collected all of the information about the poll workers. We've got a lot of different, I'll get into this lookup precinct hopefully a little later, but you can see we've got a lot of general information, including party information, whether or not they can travel, about the poll workers. And here in this first field, I've actually surfaced a lot of that information. And these low code tools are great because I've just been able to write teeny little script here that takes a look at what their responses are to some of these questions and surface some of that. So you can see here that if they're available for the election, they're green. If they're no longer interested, they've got this triangle, and they've got this little square here saying they're not available. The card means they're willing to travel, and then we're representing their political party here. So that just really helps surface the information right there for the polling teams to take a look at. And this tool actually provides this great sort of description feature. So all over the base, I've been able to put in descriptions that really helps us in the documentation of the tool, so that as we pass it on to the polling teams, they can use the tool very easily without having to come back to us with questions and without having to look up stuff in documentation. So the meat of this tool, like I said, is connecting the poll workers with precincts. So you can see here in this next table, we've got the precinct list, and we've got poll workers here. So if I click on this poll worker, you can see that this is actually pulling the record from the poll workers table into this tab. And I can very easily change different workers. I can change and add and update polling assignments, and it all gets reflected back. It's a great tool for providing that kind of information. You can have different views that have different filters. So here we're just filtering the data, and this is all the same data in the same table or tab. The tabs are really tables in this database. This allows the election teams to really quickly see which roles aren't filled when they're right before an election. We also have the interest form that people who are interested in being a poll worker can fill out. These are super easy to build and super easy to provide the link. So this would be the link that they would provide to their IT team to include the form on their website. One other thing I want to show you super quick is this election day help desk, which is a really cool thing that it's a fairly simple help desk. It's got a form, and when the poll worker fills out this form on election day if they need some help. It goes right into this issues list, and the staff member can come in and see what's going on right at the polls. I built this in a day to a request by one of our precincts that needed a way to really quickly get in touch with their poll workers and understand what was going on at the polling sites. And this is one of the real strengths of using a tool like this, is because it streamlines a lot of the development and lets you focus on really filling the partner needs quickly. Did I miss anything in the demo, guys? We good? I think we're
the only
good.
other thing that I would call out is also the ability to send emails and SMS through all of this.
Great. Yes.
You framed it so well that what Airtable sits at is this intersection between Excel and a regular database, and what you would normally have to code up integrations with various APIs to be able to send both campaign style emails and automated trigger emails. Airtable lets you do super seamlessly. And so that has been a huge value add for our partners to be able to communicate via email and SMS with their poll workers.
Thanks. Yes. All right. So I'm going to stop this demo here. Turn it back to Alex.
Melissa, there have been a few questions in the chat that I think would be worth addressing now. One is just asking about training and how you track that. And then I'll let you address that one first.
Okay, yeah, actually, okay, so I'm going to share again real quick here. We do have a training feature that we've built. It's very straightforward. We can handle 1 or 2 different training sessions. And so the tab I just showed was all the classes. Here is the list of signups, and you can see that we handle both initial signups and changes and cancels. And this is all handled with a few very simple Airtable automations, where we've written some automations that just do some basic activities to set statuses properly when somebody signs up for a class. And then, for example, when they change a session, we can update the master entry so that we're not having duplicate entries when somebody changes, and but we do have still this paper trail here so that we can see when they change or cancel. And then what was the other question? Oh, I can't hear you, Alex.
Yeah, there seem to be quite a few questions. I could throw in a couple of them. There were concerns about security. Airtable runs at Amazon. And it can have 2-factor authentication. It is a very secure system. It can be restricted to domains. People that submit and there was another question about if everybody has to have an account. Only people that directly type into the tables themselves need to have an account. Anyone else can read it and not edit it for free, and anyone can submit a form for free. And that's one of the reasons we chose Airtable over some of the other low-code development environments like Amazon Honeycomb or Microsoft's Power BI or Google App Sheets, because the pricing model really, really works well for organizations that don't have much money. Yeah, there's the concept of roles. Yes, there is roles. Within Airtable, there's creators, editors, readers only, commenters, and an owner. And all of those roles have a monthly subscription fee of it's like $20 a month, except for people that just read it. Reading is free. So you can send a link, you can send the view out, you can embed the entire Airtable view in some other website if you like, or you can send it out and it's all accessible via a web browser or phones or tablets.
Terrific. Thanks for covering all that, Mike. That was really helpful. So now that folks have a sense for what this system is, I'd love to kind of open up again to the panel and share a little about what impact you're most proud of. Maybe share a little about what this has been able to do for our government partners.
I'll jump in on that one. So I showed the help desk feature really quickly. I think that one in particular, for me, what is exciting because we had the request was really from an election official who said, you know, we only have 3 people on our phone lines for our election office. And that's usually fine, except for on election day, when we have all of the voters and all of the poll workers and anybody else with an election question all calling the same 3 phone numbers. And so we have no idea when a polling site is really having a big problem. Most of the time they can't even get through to us. And so, like I said, in about a day, I went, oh, okay, I can create a really simplified help desk for them. That's really just a very simple web form that the people who are the poll workers can fill out and then get into this table so that the people who are running the election can see right away when a polling site needs help. We rolled it out for that one county, and all of our other counties have jumped on it. And I've rolled it out for almost every single county that we've rolled out the poll workers for. And it's been a really cool feature, and it's our easiest to deploy feature. So that I'm super proud of that one.
Yeah, I might comment that we hear from our partners that we've saved them thousands and thousands of hours of work. That one, for instance, Priya may talk about it as well. In Houston, one person solicits 10,000 applications from 150 high schools, where they have to communicate with principals and parents and get permissions, and those students actually work in the elections. In one county in Pennsylvania, one person does everything. They have one person run the entire election, and candidate tracking, and all the election poll workers, and one person does it, and it's pretty straightforward. So we get an immense amount of gratitude every time we do this. So we've been able to put up in one county, the prior election director resigned 3 weeks before the election, and they were completely Excel based. We were able to, this is not normal, but we were able to bring up and install an entire application, get them trained and running, and run the whole thing in 3 weeks. So it's amazing what you can do with some of this technology.
And what excites me the most about this work and what I'm so proud of is creating an entirely different paradigm for software delivery for local governments. The status quo in many cases has been, if you need anything that is not Excel, basically, or is a little bit more sophisticated than Excel, you have to pay a vendor to do it. And because of the system we're using, which is Airtable, we can offer a lot of that same functionality at extremely lower costs. And that means that it's accessible to a much wider variety of governments who don't have the budget, but still need this extremely important software to operate government. And so I think what the poll worker product shows us is actually a template for how software can be potentially delivered in a really new and innovative way to governments in general.
Yeah, I think that dovetails so nicely with what Mike was talking about too. The lower cost, when obviously, you know, places that have only a handful of people are thinking really carefully about how to spend precious budget while still serving all of the voters and everyone in their county as best they can. And so I think we can really offer them a way to do that is more manageable. And I think that's really, really powerful. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit to talking a little bit more about some of the challenges as well, and specifically some of the things that are exciting challenges that are up ahead. So for really everyone on the panel, as you're thinking about scaling up or where the tool is today, what are some of the engineering challenges that you're really excited about and thinking about what do we want to solve? What do you want to solve next?
I'll jump in. I think the next thing we would like to make the poll worker system more scalable. We'll be talking more about like that. But I think one of the next things that we need to be able to do for election offices is ballot tracking. Some customers are starting to do ballot tracking on their own, but we've got barcode tracking and all kinds of neat things already built in. So it would be a real simple step to do that. And I'm also excited about building some front ends in Airtable. Airtable itself is a big React app, and it has the ability to function as a backend to another React app. So we can build common technology that everybody would use in React and still give our partners the flexibility of being able to build their own stuff in the backend in Airtable. So that's really exciting.
I think for me, the thing I'm really sort of thinking about right now, in addition to the scalability, because that's something we're all working on, and it's a very interesting problem, is a more immediate need for managing early voting and staffing poll workers for early voting. So we can very easily duplicate that precincts tab to do, like, if they are staffing 2 different elections at once, but early voting for some of our counties runs for 17 days. And I really don't want them to have 17 different tabs that they're trying to staff at once. So I'm really trying to think through and work on how to make that early voting staffing process more sane for our counties, and really much more manageable to get a clear picture of who's working when.
Both Mike and Melissa have touched on a fun engineering challenge right now being how to scale the poll workers tool. So I'll just elaborate on that a little bit, which is we built this tool really just to serve one county's need. We have since scaled it to about 12. And now we are wondering, what are the engineering challenges coming up ahead to get this to hundreds of counties? And it's just a really fun problem to think about, because to our knowledge, no one has done this kind of thing before with these kinds of low code systems. And so I think just being able to work in that space of some of the most sophisticated low code software that at least I've ever heard of is a really fun engineering challenge, and to think about how to customize software really for the what the end users need.
Yeah, you're touching on 2 things I wanted to go a little bit deeper into. And one of them is actually the origin story of this tool, because I think it's a really interesting moment. And then maybe we'll shift from that into some of that scaling, some of those scaling challenges that you're touching on. So actually, I'd love if you can tell us a little bit more about just the original work that you did actually on getting this tool off the ground. Tell us that story, and also, how are you thinking about scaling it at that point? Was it something that was top of mind, or was it just really trying to solve the problem that was at hand?
Sure, I can dive into that. So this tool came about because one county, Harris County in Texas, came to us and said, my current processes are not sustainable, not scalable. Is there any way you can help me? And I think this story is actually really indicative of USDR's model as a whole, which is we don't go out there and say to governments, here's what you need. Every single thing that we build is based on governments coming to us and saying, here's a problem I have. Is there a way you can help? And I think what that means for software development as a process actually is that you are always working, you always have a high amount of confidence that you're working in the right direction. I think in conventional software development, at least in a lot of environments I've worked in, there's always that worry that, is the feature I'm building actually going to move the needle? And what's so amazing about USDR's work is there's never that concern, because you're always building based on what governments are telling you directly they need. And especially at the first stage of what I would call rapid response, for example, Harris came to us and said, can you just build this? And we're building something that's a super minimum viable product in just a matter of weeks. Because you're just customizing for that one government partner's need, it's possible that, that's the end of the story. But what happened with poll workers, and what has actually happened many times in USDR's history, is that other counties will hear about it and they'll be like, actually, I really want that thing too. And so it becomes this really natural way to scale software to basically you're trying things out with a bunch of counties. So you get this like really interesting demand map of what is going on with governments, what do they really need? And then it's a really natural organic way of scaling it too, of if counties see something that's already been built, they say, hey, I really want that too. In Harris County's case specifically, we built it to customize to their need of deploying, like Mike said, a bunch of students to their poll locations, hundreds, I think it was 700 poll locations. They are the third largest county in America. So it was a really interesting use case to start with. Since then, they have continued. We weren't even sure if they were going to use it past one election. They continued to use it, added a bunch of new sophisticated features over time, and actually won an award, Harris County did, for innovative practices in election management, called the Clearinghouse Award from the U.S. Election Commission, based on their use of this tool and their use of software to really scale their processes.
I love that. I love that whole story and the way that you talk about how we're so demand driven, but it also leads to this incredible ability to find the commonality. And I want to shift a little bit to that question of scaling it, because we had a great question in the chat about whether we're pushing new versions of the tools out to users, existing users, and that's definitely true. But Mike, I'd love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about some of the challenges with scaling to many more counties and how we're thinking about addressing it.
Okay. Well, the key thing we want to avoid is the anti-pattern of a version per customer. And there's some challenges in the technology. It's a new, powerful technology that's hasn't been around for 50 years, and so some of the normal software engineering things that you would expect to be in place are not there. Things like ACID transactions and logging. So we have to develop procedures and workarounds to get the same kind of effectiveness out of the technology that something that's been around for 50 years wouldn't have to do. So we do a lot of process for enabling partners to do backups and how to do updating and how to do testing. There isn't we don't want to do testing in production, but in some degree we do testing in production. So there's certain ways we do that to make test cases our own test cases, so we don't impact partners' work, and we copy databases and work in a copy. And we have, there's a lot of automation and scripting involved. We write a lot of JavaScript that we only do that when we have to, but we do end up writing a lot of JavaScript, which is quite fun. But we have to have good engineering practices for running those in the right sequence so that the transactions are atomic. This is sort of a database, but it doesn't really have all the database technology in it. So we're having to be innovative in how we try to make modern software and engineering techniques accessible to an evolving low-code technology. Airtable is constantly adding new features every month. Today they just changed the name of what we call apps, which are scripts. Now they call them Airtable extensions. And they add new reporting tools. They're adding new stuff every month. This is really a hot area. So that's some of what we do in trying to scale it, but we still need to keep the flexibility behind the base in the background for scaling. We don't want to lock our customers in. What we're really doing is enabling our partners to see the kind of innovation that they can do themselves. Many government partners have been the poor relatives of the IT departments. They have no budget, they have no technology, they work on spreadsheets, and it's our toughest thing is getting them to imagine what they can do, because we can almost do anything they can imagine that they can talk about, but they're not used to doing that. They're not used to saying, well, wouldn't it be nice to be able to do this? When they randomly tell us that, and we say, oh yeah, we can do that, and we can do it pretty quickly. Yet we still want to be able to scale and make it common across all of the different partners. So we're trying to maintain this balance of flexibility and scalability and building common front-end technology that will be used for all of them. And it's a trade-off.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so powerful, Mike. You talked before about, and maybe you can say a little bit more about this, how once election offices, folks we're working with sort of see the technology, they both start to think about new things that they might want, but also building it themselves, which I think is just so incredible.
Yeah, that's true. There's been a couple of one county, the person's a little on the technical side, has run off, it hasn't called. We're available for supporting every partner we use. We were on call during the elections. After the election, we add, wouldn't it be nice things? We always built that for them. We give them the new technology. We have a user conference pretty much a couple times a year where they all share what works really good and what doesn't. But we've had partners who have gone off and built election planning, supply depots. They manage the locations. They manage paying the bills for putting up yard signs for elections, and they're building these applications themselves. One election partner has built her own scripts. She decided to go learn JavaScript, and she's a realtor by trade, and has built 4 or 5 little applications herself that is pretty amazing. And that's one of the reasons we really like having this flexibility of Airtable on the back end, is in that our partners can go off and build their own stuff. They think, I can try this. Let me just build a quick little base, and they discover they can use it for all kinds of stuff that they wouldn't have never thought of, and that their IT department would never support in the long term.
Yeah, and that's been such an eye-opening experience for me, of just seeing like how just a little bit of demonstration can build so much capacity in these offices. I remember another place we worked, where we showed them one tool called JotForm, and they used it for some election work, and then they just used it the rest of the county. They were like, this problem and this problem and this problem can all be solved, which is really, really exciting. And so I want to shift a little bit. Well, first, actually, I just want to say I've been really enjoying the questions coming in chat. Please feel free to keep dropping questions in throughout. And if we don't get to everything, we will make sure to answer, find some way to answer your questions if we don't have time here. But Melissa, I'd love to turn it to you a little bit to talk about your experience, as an engineer ramping up on low-code tools. What has it been like, and how have you found you've been able to apply your technical skills?
Yeah, I've loved it. Learning Airtable has been sort of like peeling back an onion. There's the kind of surface level, you look at it, it looks like Excel, and so you sort of start to get some of the understanding of the basic functionality. And then as you peel it back, you get into some of the automations and some of the built-in functions. And then as you peel it back some more, you start to learn how to build things for additional complexity. And it's been really, really great as an engineer to I like to automate things. I hate doing manual tasks, and I hate when I see other people doing manual tasks. So a lot of our election offices, they're doing things with, they literally get form submissions in emails, and then they have to take what's in the email and type it into a shared like Google spreadsheet. And I'm like, oh, no, please let me automate that for you. And so those kinds of basic automations have been really simple. And then I'm going to share my screen again real quick here, because it's been fun then to go in and do some of the more complex stuff. So here's an example of like the simplest automation we have. When a record is created in poll workers, this is Airtable functionality. You go in and you make the title of the user a new poll worker so that they can easily identify new poll workers. And our partners, they get that super fast. Then you can get into some more complex stuff. For example, like when some of our partners aren't able to connect their email accounts into Airtable. And so we use a third-party tool called SendGrid to send group emails, to send mass emails, but we've also written some scripts so that we can, for those people who can't connect their email addresses, we can send one-off customized emails. For example, this is for a training sign up. This script simply creates two little variables, a subject and a body, for a message. And then we've got a second script here that isn't configured for this base because there's some confidential API keys and stuff for SendGrid accounts that have to be in here. But it literally just takes that message and body, passes it to SendGrid, and allows them to use automations for emails, even though they can't use Airtable functionality to directly connect their email accounts. That's been super simple. And then getting even more complex. So we have, and I'm going to take this button field here and move it over so we can see my demo here. But we have this another script that's written in an app, which is basically a script that isn't triggered by an action in the base. It's one that's user triggered. And so this actually, so a lot of the states use ArcGIS or another GIS tool to map all of their precincts. And so this is a script, and you can see we've commented the heck out of it because we are volunteer driven. And so we tend to have different people coming in and helping us with this at times. So this one's a little more complex. So we're relying a lot on comments here, but this connects into a state's ArcGIS system and basically looks up the polling location of the different poll workers based on their address. And so I'm just going to scroll through this super fast so you just get an idea of the script here, and then I'm going to run it. So you can run it two ways. You can run it from that app directly. And here, I'm going to delete this person's precinct. You can run it from that app directly, or you can run it by clicking this button, and you can see this one's looking up one poll worker. Yes, I want to assign the precinct. So it's looking them up. You can see it assign the precinct, and here it's telling us the output here. So there's this real range learning Airtable of doing that. And as a developer, I've been able to, when I first started, I copied the Airtable base. So I had of our demo base. So I had a playground where I could play with it without hurting anything and sort of get the idea of what was going on in Airtable and sort of get the hang of it. If you understand basic coding concepts, basic relational database concepts, you can pick this up. We don't need everybody on the project to understand, to be able to write complex JavaScripts. It's really, do you understand conditionals? Are you good at thinking through process and like the steps for automation? And I love Airtable because it simplifies a lot of the rote tasks, like creating a form, for example, making a form and having that URL and just giving it to the IT team. That's the kind of stuff that's very useful and quite needed, but sort of like, okay, to code. But then getting into this GIS stuff, it's a really interesting problem to look at, or figuring out using the SendGrid API to send those emails. It was an interesting problem that was really useful that we solved for one precinct that then we've been able to use for a lot of other precincts as well. So you can tell I love it. And it's balancing that simplicity of what Airtable is on the surface with the complexity that you can build in as needed. And then I find too, as Airtable is rolling out new features, I can go back in and simplify some of those scripts. We've got some scripts that take info updates, like, are you available for the next election? And copies responses from that update into the main poll worker record. We've written a script to handle that in JavaScript because we don't want to copy over empty fields. But now Airtable's rolled out this feature where their automations can handle conditionals. And so we can go back in now, and now that elections have calmed down a little bit for a couple of months, go back in and help those counties simplify those scripts and actually use an Airtable script instead of a JavaScript. It's very exciting.
You know, I really like the way that you were talking about that of Airtable makes like the CRUD apps that we talked about, the create, read, update, delete, all of that's super simple. It's there. You don't have to build out that scaffolding. And so as an engineer, you're really getting to apply two things. One is that precise thinking about problems and understanding what exactly is needed in the same way that you would when writing any kind of code. And then you get to focus on the really interesting parts of the problem, the parts that do require the clever algorithm in the case of the GIS, or the like, this is the thing that really makes it interesting and different and unique. And that's where the attention goes, rather than to a lot of the mundane pieces. And as you're saying, it's nice. These tools are kind of on this cutting edge. They keep coming out with new features that provide more power. And so it both helps non-technical users because it's pretty approachable at that one layer. And then for technical users, it's like putting on the Iron Man suit. It's like, today I'm going to build an entire app that would have taken a month. And it just comes together, which I think is super cool. Well, we had a question in chat that I think is a really interesting one, because it does get at some of the challenges with low-code tools and that cutting edge. So either Mike or Melissa, I'm curious if you have anything to add about just how do we test these systems?
Yeah, I'll take that. The Airtable has added an ability to test automations recently, because before that, you really had to test them in production, which was not the ideal situation. Now they have a way to test them and you can roll them out. But there's no way to really build unit tests in the code because there's really no code. It's low code. You can write unit tests in Java in your scripts, but you can run scripts on a copied database. So there's not a great way to test it. The easiest, what we generally do is make a copy of the live production database, write our scripts, write everything and test it there. For automations, which are database triggers, there's an ability to roll them back so you can test it in production and do a rollback. And I was going to add one cool thing that I thought was really cool too that Melissa didn't mention. One of the other engineers who's not here today is building a really cool app. We've sort of got, we know what's different between most of our partners. So all the election officers around the country do things very much in common, but there are a lot of knobs and twists and things like that. And we've built a React app now that will actually generate the entire election application, most of it, 90% of it. And that looks like it's going to be really cool being able to do that. Because Airtable, it has a really great API for accessing it, and you can go out and do fetches to any other application as well. So it can integrate with pretty much anything.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think that's the what we were just talking about there, that idea of building a React app that can configure Airtable from scratch is exactly the kind of really interesting thing that we're exploring, and actually gets to testing too. You could imagine building a whole test framework like that lets you validate the base. And so those are the kinds of questions we're struggling with and excited to tackle that are on that edge of what low code can do. Is like, now that we have these very annoying mundane things taken care of, how do we then bring back some of these really great practices from that we know about from traditional software engineering, so that we get really the best of both worlds?
Yeah, things like versioning.
Exactly. I keep wanting, this dependency graph across low-code tools that lets you really understand each piece as it's being changed and what version it's at. So it's a lot of really interesting questions to tackle here. We're getting near the end of the hour. Priya, you've been on this project in various forms for almost 2 years. Maybe it's about 2 years now. I'm curious for your takeaways. What have you really learned from working on this?
Ooh, I think the one thing I haven't said already that I've learned and I'm really excited about, that has been just such an amazing part of this experience, is the government partners we work with. Mike referenced a bit about just like how grateful they are for the things we build. One thing that was maybe a little bit surprising to me and in a really great way when I started working with folks working in elections is that they're the least partisan people that you will ever meet. What they care about is our democracy running excellently. And they get so much done with so little resources. A typical elections department gets about 0.5% of the budget of a county's budget, which is on par with how much a county spends on parking systems. And so they actually are really creative. They pick up things really quickly, and they're just so delightful to work with. So that is just the one thing I'll add on that I haven't already said before.
I'll just echo that. I mean, it's really wonderful being able to help people who are trying to help and serve their communities every day. Well, with that, maybe let's talk a little bit. I do want to talk a little about everyone's experience here, kind of in going from regular old corporate tech to civic tech. So I'd love to hear from everyone on the panel. How have you found either your engineering or product work in this space to have been different or the same as working in previous roles?
Okay, I'll jump in. I think, so for me, I spent 18 years at Apple, and it's been interesting because I was building a lot of internal tools for different organizations at Apple, building backend tools for apple.com. And it's been interesting because a lot of it is still, it's automating complex processes. And so that has been it, even though the problem is different, the thinking is a lot the same. And then for me too, I was thinking about this. It's been really easy for me to slip into that elections cadence because Apple has a very specific launch cycle, and the dates are set and they do not move. And so I spent 18 years working with this very specific set date cadence and sort of understanding how other people who are my partners worked toward that cadence as well. And it's been very easy for me to sort of slip into the election cadence because of that. So it's been great, and our partners are so fantastic to work with.
A few comments. I've done a little bit of both. I've mostly worked in the private sector, but I also was the architect and software engineer on the accounting system that's used by almost all federal agencies, most states, and most cities in the US. And working with the elections and the county offices is really different than working with the federal government and with corporate. And the difference is corporate really knows what they want. There's a marketing team that says, this is what we want, and they figure out how to build it. Sometimes they'll build it iteratively, sometimes they'll spec it all at once. The federal and state governments spec it all up at once, and they are still struggling in how to do agile development. The county offices that we typically deal with for elections are sort of out in the cold. They have no idea what is possible. So when we talk to, sometimes they just know they need help, and they're very willing to do everything iteratively. They're willing to be innovative. We show them what works, and they say, oh yeah, give us more of that, which the Fed would never do that. The Fed has a huge, long list of things, and you have to check all the boxes because you're dealing with a contracting officer. You don't deal with the users. Actually, that's pretty much true in most of the state and federal governments. You're not allowed to actually interact with the users. The users are so busy, you can't talk to them. We're dealing with the people that have the problems and that are just so happy to deal with us that they'll do iterative development, they'll try stuff out, anything's great. If it works, they say, hey, this is super. If it doesn't, they tell us right away. We fix it in an hour. That kind of immediate feedback is something you can't get working in a corporate environment, because you're working on something. Even if you're doing iterative development, you're only doing releases every 6 months. We do the whole project in 3 weeks or 6 weeks. We can do it in 3 weeks. We don't like scheduling it that fast if we don't have to. So there's a big difference in how small public sector civic technology works as opposed to large scale government. And I would say large scale government and corporate is very similar. I worked at General Motors and Hewlett Packard as well in IT.
I'll just jump in quickly from the product perspective a little bit. And Emily, that's really well said. Literally the laboratories of democracy. That holds up really well with my experience with elections. I think, so from product perspective, there's a couple things compared to my corporate career that I want to call out. One is obviously just like the impact of what we do. And I think it's when the 2020 elections happened, and this and I was working with a couple counties. I think we had deployed it maybe to like a half dozen by then. And I was watching the results roll in. It hit me in a different moment. I was like, I've never worked on software that felt this meaningful. And I really enjoyed past software jobs, but there's just something about the impact of the work we do that is really unique in terms of my product career. The other thing I want to call out from a product perspective is the ability to work on a bunch of diverse types of projects. So we've mainly been talking about the poll worker tool, and some of our team members really just focus on one project. But one thing I really enjoyed is we have a host of different projects going on across the election space. And so getting to put, and they have very different challenges, very different end users. If you go to our website, you can see a couple examples. And it's just fun to get to think about a bunch of different products at various stage of maturity at once. I think at large corporations, especially in my experience, like you're working on like that one, not just even one product, but like that one feature for like many months. So that's been a nice change of pace too.
And I've got one more thing to add, which is that we've talked a little bit about how we're empowering our government partners and teaching them about how to think about automation and these kinds of tool sets. And we're not trying to perpetuate our involvement with this product. We are really trying to teach them how to help themselves with it. And so I think the greatest reward for me is when one of our partners is like, I don't think we need a lot of help anymore. We're going to take your access down to read only. And if we need you, we'll contact you. And we don't feel like we have to sort of keep up that engagement and because we're not making money from them. So we don't have to keep that up. We are empowering them. And it's great when they're like, hey, we've got it. We get this now.
Amazing. I think that's such a great point that, a win for us is when we have just helped the ecosystem work more effectively. We only have a couple minutes left. I want to say, first of all, thank you to our panelists in the audience for joining us. I think we answered everyone's questions. Feel free to reach out to us. I'm Alex at USDRresponse.org. If anyone has any burning questions that didn't get answered here today, I'll make sure to route it to the right place if I can't handle it. And I just want to mention a couple of things. One is, if this sounds exciting and you're interested in pitching in, USDR is hiring. We have both roles in for technologists and for folks with government experience. They're on our jobs page, and you can check them out. And we're also always looking for volunteers. So if you're curious to dip your feet in our toes in the water of civic tech, check that out. And the whole ecosystem is actually growing right now as well. So there are other resources like the Code for America Civic Tech Jobs Board that you can go to if you're interested in learning more about just how to be a part of this type of work. And finally, just want to mention we're planning to do a few more of these over the course of this year. And so any feedback you have would be really appreciated. We'll send out a survey afterwards. So please keep an eye out. Hopefully we'll have another one soon. And I just want to say thank you again to the panelists, everyone who joined from the audience. Loved all the questions that came in, and please reach out if there's anything that you're dying to learn more about.